When I asked my dad for $70,000 to start my tech company, he told me it was too risky. But not long after, he took out a $555,000 loan for Brandon, for an Audi and a bunch of dreams that never went anywhere. And now he wants me to sell my home to bail them out. I told them to leave my porch and not come back. Folks always say family means love, fairness, and support. But sometimes, the worst pain you'll ever feel comes from the people who share your last name. I used to believe my family was solid, full of care and warmth. Turns out, I was just the one left out. This is my story. I'm the older brother, the one who got overlooked while my parents blindly put their trust in my younger brother. I hope you'll stick around to hear it all. I'd honestly appreciate knowing what you think when it's done. My name's Dylan. I'm 28 years old, and I run my own tech startup. It's not some giant empire or anything, but it gives me a good life. I've got 2 homes, one I live in and another I rent out. I'm not rolling in cash, but I make enough to live without stress. My younger brother, Brandon, well, he's always been the center of attention at home. He's smart, slick with his words, and has a way of getting people to buy into his big dreams. But the guy? He's not grounded in reality. Brandon jumps from idea to idea. One day it's tech, then a high-end restaurant, next a movie studio. His dreams sound great when he talks about them, but he never follows through. There's always some excuse, like no investors or not enough funds. About a year ago, I found out something that shook me. My parents had taken out a loan on their house to give Brandon a pile of money for another one of his big ideas. That's when things started to unravel. See, my parents have always believed that family sticks together, no matter what. And that's a good thing, until it blinds you. They're not bad people, but they have one major flaw. They believe everything Brandon says, no questions asked. My dad's the quiet type, serious all the time. He's the one who makes the decisions in the house. And I've never really felt like he respected the life I've built. Maybe it's because I didn't follow the blueprint he imagined for me. To him, success looks flashy, big cars, big titles. Not the humble tech business I built from the ground up. My mom's softer. She leads with her heart, not her head. And to her, Brandon's still the one who needs help. Me? I'm already doing okay in her eyes, so I'm not supposed to need anything. She always says, "You're strong, you can handle it." But Brandon, he needs us. We never had loads of money, but we got by just fine. Dad ran a small business, and Mom worked with numbers, accounting, mostly. That gave us a steady life. Plus, Grandpa left behind a nice chunk of money from some smart property deals. If they'd used it right, it could have set them up comfortably for life. As a kid, I didn't notice any favorites. It felt like they loved us equally. We had shared birthday parties. If I got a toy, so did Brandon. New clothes on holidays for both of us. Everything seemed fair. But once Brandon started school, things changed. He did great, top of the class, popular, teachers adored him. My parents were over the moon. And little by little, it felt like they stopped seeing me. It wasn't about toys or meals. It showed up in the things that shaped our futures. Brandon wanted to learn French. They paid for fancy lessons without hesitation. Wanted to go to a pricey summer camp? They signed him up. Said he wanted piano lessons? They bought a piano and hired a private teacher. Me? I never got that kind of support. By high school, it was crystal clear. Brandon said he wanted to go to an elite private school. They paid the full tuition, no questions asked. When I asked if I could go to a better school too, my mom just said, "Public schools are just fine. No need to waste money." I wasn't naive. I knew exactly what was going on. They figured Brandon was their big investment, the one who might hit it big. They thought I'd be fine without help, so they didn't bother. At 18, I discovered I loved working with computers. I wanted to take an online course to learn coding. It wasn't expensive, just a fraction of what they'd spent on Brandon's stuff. But when I brought it up, my dad just shook his head and said, "You can teach yourself that stuff. No need to spend money." By then, I was used to doing things on my own. So I said nothing. I spent the summer learning online, piece by piece, line by line. No teacher, no help, just me and free internet tutorials. After years of moments like that, I came to a painful realization. My parents never truly believed in me. To them, Brandon was the one worth investing in. I was just the kid who didn't need anything. I never blamed Brandon. It wasn't his fault. But from that moment on, I stopped expecting anything from my parents. After college, I worked hard for 2 straight years, saving every dollar I could. By the time I was 23, I had enough to open my own small tech company. But to take it further, I needed more, about $70,000. I thought long and hard before asking my parents. I hated the idea of asking. I wasn't looking for a handout. I was willing to sign paperwork, treat it like a loan, pay it all back. And honestly, after all the help Brandon had gotten, I figured maybe it was fair I asked, just this once. I still remember that day. I sat down with them and laid out my business plan. I'd done my research, found great partners, and was ready to be accountable for every single cent. But just a few minutes in, my dad cut me off. No, he said. It's too risky. That was it. I waited, hoping he'd say more. But he didn't. He didn't care about my plan or the work I put in. In his eyes, nothing I did was good enough. Meanwhile, anything Brandon touched was worth backing. I didn't argue. I just gave him a quiet nod and a tired smile. I wasn't surprised, but it still hurt. So I kept going. Even without the $70,000, I launched the company anyway. It meant growing slower, but I was careful. I managed every dollar and worked hard to improve whenever I could. At the start, it was just a small team of folks working from their bedrooms. I pushed myself to the limit, often staying up till I dropped. But I never gave up. No one else believed in me, but I believed in myself. And I made it. By the time I was 27, the business was doing well. I wasn't just living steady. I'd bought 2 houses. One for me, one I rent out. They're both in nice neighborhoods, and they give me peace of mind. I built it all. No help from my parents. Nobody helped me. Not once. Everything I have today, I earned through hard work and stubborn persistence. But even after all that, I couldn't stop thinking how much money had my parents poured into Brandon over the years. When Brandon was 22, he decided to open a fancy little cafe, styled like something you'd find tucked away in Paris. My parents handed him over $145,000 to bring that dream to life. He picked a high-end spot downtown, filled it with designer furniture, and staffed it like he was running some upscale restaurant. 8 months later, it was gone. The truth is, Brandon didn't have a clue how to manage money or run a business. And when things went south, he never owned up to a single mistake. So what did Mom and Dad say after the cafe flopped? "Oh, the economy's just tough right now," they said. "Our sweet boy deserves another shot." Of course he did. Another shot. When Brandon turned 24, he gave fashion a try. My parents handed over another $70,000 for a boutique that sold trendy clothes. That one didn't even make it 6 months. The problem? Brandon didn't know the first thing about fashion, but that didn't slow him down one bit. He always acted like he was some hidden genius the world just hadn't discovered yet. I thought, hoped, really, that would be the last time my parents handed him a blank check. But nope. They kept the faith. That's when it hit me. My parents didn't trust me because I didn't seem like a gamble. They said no to me not because I wasn't capable, but because deep down, they never believed I deserved a chance. And then, about a year ago, something happened that hit me like a punch to the gut. I was in the old part of town, running a quick errand, and thought I'd stop by my parents' place on the way back. I didn't call first, just figured I'd swing by, say hello. But as I pulled into the driveway, I saw something that made me slam the brakes. There it was, a brand new Audi. I just sat there, staring at it. My parents had never been the kind to throw money around. So where in the world did this car come from? Before I could process it, the front door opened and Mom walked out, grinning ear to ear. "Brandon just got a new car," she said, like she was announcing the birth of a grandchild. "Isn't it amazing?" I didn't say a word, just stood there, stunned. "A Audi?" I thought. With what money? Brandon had failed over and over. There's no way he could afford that. I walked inside, still trying to stay calm, but then I spotted a pile of bank paperwork on the kitchen table. I picked it up. My heart sank as I flipped through the pages. It was a mortgage loan. $700,000. My throat tightened. They borrowed 70% of their home's value. I looked at the documents, then at my parents. "You used the house to take out a loan?" I asked, my voice low and tight. Dad just frowned. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. "We only took a small loan to help Brandon," she said softly, like she was talking about borrowing a cup of sugar. I laughed, dry and bitter. "A small loan," I repeated, glancing at the numbers again. $700,000? That's small? What about the inheritance? I asked, almost afraid of the answer. "What happened to the money Grandpa left?" Mom paused, then let out a long sigh. "That money's gone." "Gone," I echoed, each letter landing like a punch. I looked out at the Audi in the driveway. I already knew. "You spent it on the car, didn't you?" They didn't say a word. Mom bit her lip. Dad just stared at me like I was being disrespectful. He needed that car. Dad finally snapped. In business, image matters. Who's going to take you seriously if you pull up in some regular car? I let out a small smile, but not because I thought it was funny. It was the kind of smile that shows just how far gone things are. You burned through the savings, blew through the inheritance, bought him a luxury car, and now you've put your house on the line. All for another one of Brandon's grand plans? I shook my head. Do you even see how risky that is? If he fails again, you could lose everything. Their faces shifted. The warmth was gone. Mom looked at me with cold disappointment. Dad's voice turned sharp. You're just jealous of your brother, aren't you? He said. You want him to fail so you can feel better about yourself. I stared at him. Jealous, I said, barely able to believe what I was hearing. You think I'm jealous of someone who's wasted this family's money over and never once owned up to it? They couldn't see the truth, no matter how plainly I laid it out. I took a breath to keep from yelling. Then I looked straight at my dad. When I was 26, I asked you for $70,000 to launch my company, I said. You remember that? You turned me down on the spot. Said it was too risky. But now you're fine risking your entire house for Brandon? Has he ever had a single success? I'm disappointed in both of you, I added quietly. Dad slammed his glass down so hard the sound bounced around the room. That was years ago, and you're fine now, he said. But Brandon needs support. Stop using the past to tear this family apart. Then he got up and pointed to the door. If all you're going to do is complain, you can leave. I looked at them for a moment. Then I set the loan papers down on the table, gave a slight nod, and walked out. On the way home, I called Brandon. As much as I was angry with our parents, I still felt like I should try one last time to talk some sense into him. Brandon, please listen, I said. You're heading down the wrong path. Mom and Dad have put everything on the line for you. If this doesn't work, they're going to lose their home. Don't you see that? But instead of hearing me out, he gave me a fake laugh, the kind that's meant to shut you down. You're always like this, Dylan, he said. You're jealous. You can't stand the idea of me being more successful than you. So now you're trying to stop me. I went quiet for a second. You actually believe that? I asked, calm but sad. What else would it be? He shot back. You've got it all, a business, houses, money, and now that it's my turn, you can't handle it. You're just selfish. I didn't say anything right away. I just shook my head. If that's what you think, I said, then there's nothing left to talk about. And I hung up. That was it for me. I was done trying. A week went by. I didn't call. Neither did they. Then, out of the blue, my parents invited me over for dinner. I didn't expect it, especially not so soon after everything that went down. But they're still my family, no matter what. So I said yes. When I got there, I saw Brandon was already inside. Something felt different in the room. It wasn't as tense this time. My parents looked at me, and my dad spoke first. Dylan, he said, we're sorry. We said some things last time that weren't fair. Mom gave a small nod. Her voice was quieter than usual. Then my dad said something I never thought I'd hear. Brandon wants to say sorry, too. I turned and looked at him. He gave this small nod and scratched the back of his head. Yeah, he said, I got heated that day. I shouldn't have said what I did. I was stunned. My parents had never apologized to me, not once. And Brandon? He'd never admitted to being wrong about anything. For a second, I actually thought, maybe, just maybe, they finally saw where they'd gone wrong. But less than a minute later, I figured out what this dinner was really about. My dad cleared his throat, like he was about to give a speech, and started talking real slow. Dylan, he said, you've got two houses. One you live in, and one you rent out. Right then, my gut told me something was off. Why are you bringing that up? I asked, my voice starting to cool down in a not-so-friendly way. Then Mom chimed in, sounding like it was just the most reasonable thing in the world. Brandon's getting into real estate now, she said. He needs to look reliable. A nice place to stay would make a big difference. She looked right at me. If you could let him use one of your properties, it would mean a lot for his future. I just stared at them. So that was the point of this whole dinner. The apology? Just a setup. A warm-up act for one more insane favor. I didn't even hesitate. No, I said flatly. Mom blinked like she couldn't believe what she just heard. What do you mean, Dylan? She asked, still trying to sound calm, though her voice was starting to crack. I said, I'm not giving Brandon my house. I paused. I'm not stupid. The room turned icy. My dad set his chopsticks down with a hard thud. His eyes locked onto mine. Dylan, you've got two homes, he said, his tone low but stern. Brandon just needs a chance. He's your brother. I let out a cold laugh. Let me get this straight. You want me to give up my own property just so Brandon can look successful? After all the money you've thrown his way, and he's never followed through on anything? Dad's voice got sharper. He hasn't failed. He just hasn't had the right opportunity yet. And you, he added, you already have everything. Can't you help him? Just this once? Another laugh slipped out of me, but this one was hollow. Everything? You never gave me anything, I said. I asked you for $65,000 to start my company, and you turned me down without blinking. And now you want me to give Brandon an entire house? I shook my head. I'm not crazy. Mom's hands were shaking. Dad slammed his fist on the table so hard the glasses rattled. You're just like the rest, selfish, he snapped. You envy your brother. You're scared he'll get ahead of you. I stood up. My chest was tight, not with anger, but disappointment. No, I said, I'm not scared. I'm just not blind. The room went silent. I turned to Brandon. He hadn't said a word since his half apology. He wouldn't even look at me. And I knew right then, if I had agreed to give him that house, he would have taken it without a second thought. No hesitation. No shame. Just like always. I shook my head. It didn't even make me angry anymore. Just tired. You can keep believing in him if you want, I said. But I'm done. Then I walked out of the house I used to call home. Behind me, I heard my dad yelling one last thing. If you walk out now, don't ever come back. I didn't look back. I meant it this time. I was done for good. A few months later, surprise, surprise, Brandon failed again. I didn't hear it from Mom or Dad. Brandon didn't say a word either. I found out through a friend in real estate. Hey Dylan, he said. Did you hear about Brandon? His deal went bust. I felt my stomach drop. What happened? Even though I already knew. He bought in too high and sold too low. Got crushed. Lost everything. And the mortgage your parents took out, he added. That money's gone. I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. I wasn't surprised. I'd seen it coming a mile away. But there was more. What about the Audi? I asked, even though I had a bad feeling. He sold it, my friend said. Couple months back. Tried to keep things afloat. Didn't last long. I gave a dry, empty laugh. My parents had bet everything on Brandon. They were convinced he was destined to succeed. Now? No cash. No business. No car. And soon, no home. And me? I didn't feel happy. I wasn't proud or smug. Just empty. I had warned them. I tried to get through to them. But they wouldn't listen. And I knew what was coming next. Sure enough, just a few hours after I heard the news, my phone started lighting up like a Christmas tree. First call was from Mom. I didn't pick up. Then another. And another. Then a flood of texts. Dylan, please answer. We need you. Don't leave us like this. I saw every message, but I didn't write back. I already knew. They weren't reaching out to make peace. They wanted help. Money. The next morning, I headed out for work. As I opened the door, I froze. There they were. My parents. And Brandon. Standing on my doorstep like ghosts. They looked like life had drained out of them. Brandon had lost that usual cocky look. His face was pale, his eyes tired. No expensive clothes. No entrepreneur energy. He looked like a man who'd hit rock bottom. Mom's eyes were red and puffy like she hadn't stopped crying. Dad, once proud and loud, now looked like he'd aged 10 years in just a few months. The weight of it all was dragging him down. They had nothing left. Dad cleared his throat, voice scratchy and worn. Dylan, we were wrong. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. My face cold. Now you see it? I said. No arguing this time. No shouting. No calling me selfish or jealous. They just stood there, quiet. Because now, they needed me. Mom tried to speak, her voice shaking. Son, we're out of options. Please help us. I let out a slow breath and cut her off. I don't have the money. They froze. But Dad stepped in quickly, like he'd already rehearsed it. You could sell your company, he said. Or one of your homes. If we can just pay back what we owe, we can keep the house. Start over. I looked at him for a long second. Then I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They really thought I'd sell my company, give up everything I'd worked for, to fix their mess? These were the same people who wouldn't give me $70,000 when I wanted to build something real. And now they were asking me to throw away everything I built? They cut me out. They told me no. And now, after everything, they wanted me to lose it all for them. But I had nothing left to give. I stood up straight, walked to the door, and opened it wide. Then I pointed toward the street. Leave my home. Nobody moved. Brandon started to say something, but I cut him off. I told you, I'm not a fool. I didn't need to say anything else. A month later, the bank took their house. Just like I knew it would. They packed up what little they had and left. No more home. No more comfort. They were officially homeless. I wasn't surprised. I had seen it coming the moment they signed that mortgage. At first, they stayed with some old friends, but no one could take them in for long. Eventually, they ended up bouncing between cheap motel rooms, dark, damp, cramped places. And when that money dried up, they ended up in shelters, standing in line for food like so many others who'd lost everything. These were the same parents who once had a solid house, steady jobs, and enough savings to grow old in peace. Now they were just another family who gambled it all and lost. And Brandon? The man who once bragged about being a future CEO, who drove around in a brand new Audi. He was flat broke. He wandered the city, looking for work, but nobody was hiring someone with a record of failures and no sense of responsibility. And as much as I told myself I didn't care anymore, I still watched from a distance. I didn't talk to them, didn't reach out. But I knew where they were, how they were getting by. Even though I wanted to feel nothing, I couldn't fully let go. Not completely. For 3 months, I let them face what it meant to lose everything. I needed them to understand the cost of their choices. But deep down, there was still that part of me, that part that remembered I was their son. No matter how badly they treated me, no matter how many times they pushed me aside, they were still my parents. About a month ago, I made a decision. I went to see them. They looked like they'd been broken down completely. Dad, who used to walk like he owned the world, couldn't even look me in the eye. His head hung low. Mom looked exhausted. Her face was pale and lined. Her hair had more gray than I remembered. Her eyes were hollow from too many sleepless nights. Brandon sat off to the side. Quiet. No speeches. No swagger. He wasn't the man who used to talk about building empires and chasing big dreams. No one said anything for a long time. Finally, I broke the silence. I'll rent a place for you. It'll be small, nothing fancy, but enough to live near the city. I'll cover the rent. For 1 year. Mom lifted her head. I saw a flicker of hope on her face. But I wasn't done. During that year, Brandon needs to find work, I said. And after 12 months, you're on your own. I won't be helping again. Dad said nothing. Mom didn't plead. They both knew they couldn't ask for more. Brandon opened his mouth, maybe to protest, maybe to beg. But for the first time ever, Dad raised his hand and stopped him. Then he looked at me and gave the smallest, slowest nod. And in that moment, I saw something in him I'd never seen before. He knew. He finally knew he'd been wrong. Now, you might be wondering why I only offered help for a year. Here's the reason. Brandon still lives with them, and I won't let him keep riding on my back. For years, he's always had someone there to clean up his mess. But this time, if he wants a life, he has to build it himself. If, after a year, my parents are managing, great. That's what I hope for. But if they're not, then I'll make Brandon leave. After that, I'll keep paying for the apartment, just to keep them off the streets. But Brandon? He's not my responsibility anymore. That's my final word. And now, I want to ask you something. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you still help them? Or would you let them live with the outcome of their choices? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story spoke to you, hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Thanks for being here.